Identifying good talent is no easy feat, but once you've found the right staff for the job, how do you actually hold on to them? Well, joining me in the studio to chat more about this are Rob Sussman of Integr8 IT and Lana Potgieter from Ascendancy Career Consulting. Welcome, Rob. Welcome, Lana.
Thank you.
Thanks, Astrid.
Welcome to Real Business.
Thank you.
Tell me, Rob, how do you go about finding talent and skill?
The ability to attract, to develop and to retain talent within the SME and the corporate sector is very, very different. The ability to attract talent in the SME is very much around a particular person, whereby you have generally one person spearheading and running a small type of IT company. Now that person has the culture built within them, whereas when you're sitting in a larger organization, let's say from 50 people plus, you're now sitting with a culture that has to be bred within the tapestry of the organization. So it's more about the culture that exists within the company as opposed to the people. The ability to attract the people to your organization is one thing, and there are a lot of skills available out in the market, but the right skill is very, very difficult to find. One of the challenges that one will find in the ICT sector is the ability to retain those skills. And the truth of the matter is it's no longer good enough to just offer a better financial reward structure. It's more around the culture of the company, it's the organization, it's the internal leadership programs. And in today's environment, whereby the industry is a very young industry, it's the ability to offer a long-term career path and not just a job.
Right. So Lana, how would you go about trying to find this skill and developing that skill?
SMEs typically don't have the resources to do the searching themselves. So I would suggest that you use a really great talent scout, and then verify interview and CV information by doing a psychometric assessment. There are tools on the market, and we use a tool that will combine not only the interest and the ability, but also the general work characteristics of a person. Then you get a really good fit in the job and in the organization, inside the culture that you're wanting to create. But firstly, it's very important to know where you're wanting to take your company.
Right. Now, like Rob was saying earlier, you know, you're looking at long-term type of maintaining that skill. Definitely. Once you get there. What is the difference between skill and talent, and how would you because that obviously is part of keeping someone within your business.
Yeah. You can train anybody to have the skills that are required to do a job and even to do it well. But the talent comes into, can you get a person to grow with your company? Can you get them to fit in and buy into your long-term vision? So that they're not there just to do a job, but they're actually there to carve a career for themselves, to be part of your future sustainability.
What skills have you put in place, Rob, to help you with all these assessments?
Generally, within an environment in the ICT sector, one is very dependent, as you actually say, on skill. So although one often has a technology, the management of that underlying architecture is actually people. So the HR component, that's when we were chatting about earlier, the HR component is critical. It's critical to managing expertise and to developing the leadership skills. What we do is we run continuous internal leadership programs to provide the enhanced growth in terms of the personnel career.
And this personal career, you obviously is what you use to maintain your staff. What are let's talk about some of the skills, and when you talk about skills and maintaining that, the tools you've implemented in maintaining that staff and developing those skills that people have. Lana?
I think it's very important that as management you engage your staff so that they know what your future vision is, so that they can have the opportunity to say, yes, I'm aligned with that, I'd like to be part of this, and then what gaps are there to be filled. Now, with the psychometric assessment that we use, we can actually see, well, if I'm wanting to move Rob up to a higher level of management, then he will have to develop some assertiveness, or he will have to develop his leadership or his confidence, whatever that might be. And when you can identify that, you can actually start developing people in lieu of moving them forward. So you don't end up having to fix things once people have moved and then they see they're completely out of their depth. You actually preempt it. And then deliberate, structured leadership development is incredibly important. But you know, mentoring in that organization is critical, because how else are they going to know where they're going with you.
Right.
So it's very important to have a close contact with your staff, and then to align what they want for themselves with the company objectives. So if what I want to generate for myself in my life, I can do by being aligned with the company objectives, then that's a perfect fit.
Now, what would happen in the situation where you're looking at SMEs who don't really have the financial support to develop all these skills? What kind of advice would you give them, and how would you advise them to go about it?
You know, there are opportunities to partner and engage with outsource companies. So there are various outsourced HR companies whereby an SME wouldn't be able to have the financial backing to maybe go and recruit their own teams, whereas one could actually work with various expertise with spiritual leaderships. One could work with outsourced HR companies, and one also needs to consider the BEE component as well.
Any advice you would advise, Lana?
Well, it's not only about the money. People seldom really leave because of money. It's feeling unappreciated, feeling unnoticed that will have people leaving. So, and that doesn't cost a company any money. You can feel have your people feel recognized and acknowledged for the input and their contribution to your company without spending any money. So that's your first place. And then the second thing is, as you develop leadership, people start taking ownership of their own personal development. And then there's an assistance that happens rather than a let me help you out. So I'm very much for people taking ownership of their own development.
100%. And the landscape has also changed. The landscape in today's environment, and specifically in the ICT industry, the industry is very, very young. So you're coming to an environment whereby you can have leaders and managers and a solid management team that the average age can be in your late 20s. So the guys are generally, they're quite aggressive, they achieve a lot in a very, very short space of time. So it's no longer about somebody sitting in a role for 25 years and getting a gold watch after year 30. These days you can have somebody that can just about, on the same basis, they can just about double their salaries within a very short space of time, coupled together with the fact that they expect to achieve a lot more. So these guys are achieving in a 2 or 3 year period what previously on the landscape people would achieve over 20 years.
Do you think this has a great impact, or does it actually, is it productive in the sense that what you were doing previously on 20 years, you're now doing in 2 years? Do you think that it has changed the quality? It
has changed the quality. If you look at the innovation that comes from the companies now, it's growing at a compounded rate. So it's very peculiar to sit at the other end of a desk and look at a businessman that's been in business for 30 or 40 years taking advice from somebody that's been in the business world for 5 years. But that's what you actually see today. You've got these highly intelligent minds.
And you think that's important? How do you get over that? You know, where you have this older businessman sitting with a younger businessman. How do you've got all these young SMEs out there with younger businessmen that are running their own companies.
Absolutely.
What advice would you give them for going about that? And
for me, it comes down to self-confidence and self-image. Whether you're old or young, be true to yourself, believe in yourself, and be clear on where you're headed. The lack of confidence comes when I'm not sure what I want to achieve and where I want to be going with this. And whether you're old or young makes no difference really. Whether you're 50 and clear on what you want to do and how you want to retire and what your life should look like, or whether you're 25, clear on when you're going to retire and what your life should look like till you get there, just being sure of yourself, then it all works together really well.
And that will help filter the whole process down to the kind of talent you have.
Because you definitely need the experience from the older generation, but you also need the innovative, creative thinking from the younger guys. So they work together better when they're a team rather than as individuals.
So teamwork is definitely the way to go.
Absolutely.
As an SME.
Absolutely.
100%.
Well, thank you very much for joining me in the studio. Well, it seems there are ways and means of actually getting and keeping the talent you want. And keeping them happy is well worth the effort, since it's people, after all, who make your business. Thank you for joining me in the studio today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Astrid.